Have you ever wondered why we speak so many different languages? Why you might be watching this in English, while your neighbor speaks Spanish and someone across the world speaks Mandarin? What if I told you the answer could be found in the ruins of an ancient, colossal tower that dared to touch the heavens? This is the story of the Tower of Babel. The tale is one of the most famous stories from the book of Genesis. It describes a time when all of humanity spoke a single language and lived together in one place, the land of Shinar. United by a common tongue, they decided to build a city with a tower so tall its top would reach the sky. They weren't just building a skyscraper. They were making a name for themselves, a monument to their own power and unity, to prevent being scattered across the whole earth. But this act of monumental pride was seen as a direct challenge to the divine. According to the story, God came down to see the city and the tower. Seeing Jehovah's unchecked ambition, God decided to confound their language so they could no longer understand each other's speech. Suddenly, a simple request for a brick was met with a confused stare. The grand project descended into chaos. Communication broke down, construction halted, and the people, now divided by language, scattered across the face of the earth, just as they had feared. The city was named Babel, from the Hebrew verb belao, meaning to confuse or to babble. It's a powerful story, a myth explaining the origin of our world's linguistic diversity. But what if it's more than just a story? Could the Tower of Babel have been a real place? For centuries, scholars and adventurers have searched for evidence, and what they found is fascinating. Let's journey back in time, not just to the pages of a sacred text, but to the dusty plains of ancient Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. This region, known as the cradle of civilization, was home to the Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians. And it's in the heart of Babylonia that our search begins. Archaeologists have uncovered the remains of massive stepped pyramids called ziggurats. These weren't tombs like the Egyptian pyramids. They were religious structures, believed to be the earthly dwelling places of the gods. They were built to bridge the gap between heaven and earth. Sounds familiar, right? The most famous of these is the Great Ziggurat of Babylon, known as Adamannaki. Its name in Sumerian means the foundation of heaven and earth. This wasn't just any ziggurat. It was the religious centerpiece of the most powerful city in the ancient world. The city of Babylon itself was a marvel, with its legendary hanging gardens and impenetrable walls. And at its heart stood Adamannaki. Historical records, like a cuneiform tablet from 229 BC called the Ezagila tablet, give us the exact dimensions of this structure. It was a perfect square, about 91 meters on each side, and soaring to a height of 91 meters. That's as tall as a 30-story building, an absolutely colossal structure for the ancient world. It had 7 tiers, each painted a different color, culminating in a shrine at the very top dedicated to the chief god of Babylon, Marduk. Imagine seeing this for the first time. Rising from the flat plains, a man-made mountain of colored brick, gleaming in the Mesopotamian sun, its peak disappearing into the clouds. It would have been an awe-inspiring symbol of human achievement and power. It's no wonder that travelers and writers of the ancient world, like the Greek historian Herodotus, wrote about it in wonder. The parallels between Adamannaki and the biblical Tower of Babel are striking. Both are massive towers built in the land of Shinar, which is Babylonia. Both were built with baked bricks, a common building material in the region. Both were monuments of immense human ambition, designed to reach the heavens. It is highly probable that the story of the Tower of Babel was inspired by the real-life existence of Adamannaki. Think about it from the perspective of the ancient Israelites, who were exiled to Babylon in the 6th century BC. They were captives in a foreign land, surrounded by the overwhelming power and culture of their conquerors. At the center of this power was this enormous ziggurat, a symbol of Babylonian pride and their pagan gods. It's easy to see how they would view this structure as a symbol of human arrogance, a defiant fist shaken at the heavens. The story of Babel's fall could have served as a powerful theological message for them, that human pride has its limits, and ultimate power belongs to God, not to earthly empires, no matter how mighty they seem. The construction of these ziggurats was also a massive undertaking, requiring a huge organized labor force. It's likely that workers were conscripted from all corners of the vast Babylonian Empire, people who spoke many different languages. Imagine the chaos on such a construction site. Foremen shouting orders in Akkadian, workers trying to communicate in Aramaic, Elamite, or Egyptian. This linguistic diversity on a real-life construction project in Babylon could have been the seed for the story of God confounding the languages. The narrative elegantly explains a real-world phenomenon the Israelites would have witnessed firsthand. So, while we may not find a ruin with a sign that says Tower of Babel was here, the evidence points strongly to Itimenanki as its historical counterpart. The tower itself has a long and turbulent history. It was damaged and rebuilt multiple times over the centuries. But its final destruction came after Alexander the Great conquered Babylon in 331 BC. He found the ziggurat in a state of disrepair and planned a magnificent restoration. He even had his soldiers clear away the rubble, but his sudden death brought the project to a halt. The great tower was never rebuilt. Its bricks were scavenged for other buildings, and over time it melted back into the earth, leaving behind only its massive foundations, which you can still see in Iraq today. The story of Babel, however, lived on. It became more than just a memory of a real building. It became a powerful metaphor. It's a cautionary tale about hubris, the dangers of pride, and the limits of human power. But it's also a story about our origins, an attempt to answer that fundamental question. Why are we so different? Today, linguists have a scientific explanation for the diversity of languages. They trace them back through family trees, showing how they evolved and diverged over thousands of years from a common ancestor, a hypothetical proto-human language. This process of linguistic evolution is driven by migration, geographical separation, and cultural change. As groups of people move apart, their languages change independently, accumulating new words, sounds, and grammatical rules until they become mutually unintelligible. It's a slow, natural process, not a sudden, divine event. But does the scientific explanation make the story of Babel obsolete? I don't think so. The story of Babel speaks to a deeper truth about the human condition. It captures the tension between our desire for unity and the reality of our diversity. It reminds us that communication is fragile and that misunderstanding can lead to division and conflict. In our modern world, we've built new kinds of towers. We have the internet, global trade, and instantaneous communication. In a way, we are trying to rebuild Babel to create a single global community. We have tools like Google Translate that can instantly bridge language gaps, something the builders of Babel could only dream of. Yet, we are still so divided. We struggle with cultural misunderstandings, political conflicts, and social fragmentation. Perhaps the true lesson of Babel isn't that diversity is a curse. Maybe it's a challenge. The story forces us to confront the difficulty of understanding one another. It's a reminder that true unity isn't about everyone being the same or speaking the same language. It's about empathy, respect, and the hard work of listening to and understanding those who are different from us. The myth of the Tower of Babel, whether inspired by a real ziggurat or not, has echoed through history, influencing art, literature, and our very understanding of ourselves. It's a story that, thousands of years later, still asks us a vital question. In a world of many voices, how do we learn to truly communicate? So, did the Tower of Babel really exist? The answer is both yes and no. A physical tower, the Etemenanki ziggurat, almost certainly inspired the legend. What do you think? Is the Tower of Babel story a historical account a powerful metaphor, or something in between? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on this ancient mystery. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed unraveling this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into history's greatest mysteries. Until next time, stay curious.